Hi, everyone. It is awesome to be here on this Saturday. It is not a lovely day, but it's always a lovely day for live streaming. So I hope you guys are doing really, really well. I hope that the beginning of the weekend is so far good for you. And today I wanted to just talk to you about managing your time. This is something that was requested by a fellow author, Irene Winters. She is a YA fantasy author, so definitely check her out. And she wanted to know how I manage my time between being an author, being an editor, and everything else. So I want to share some tips with you, but I also definitely would love to hear your opinion. So, put some things in the chat if you have questions, if you have if you have ideas, anything, I love hearing what you guys have to say. And you never know when somebody's going to say something that actually changes the way you do things. So hi, guys. Thank you so much for coming. Hi, Travis. Hi, Amber. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you at least a little mini summary, not too much, of the things that I do, so you have a good idea of like what I'm balancing. So first of all, I do have a full-time job. I'm a project manager, and project management is something that it depends on how many projects you have going on. There's a lot to be done, and sometimes you get overwhelmed. It can be months that you're working, 9 to practically midnight. Sometimes it really depends. And then there are times when it's just a regular 9 to 5 job. So the good thing about being a project manager is that you learn a ton about how to balance your time. So I hope that I can share some helpful tips with you. But so I'm saying that it's not always easy to balance my time with that job. Then I also have an editing company that's Proof Positive. You can check it out. I have a link down in the description, proofpositivepro.com. And I do have other people that I work with as well. So it's my business, and I hire freelance editors who I really, really trust as well. Very heavily vetted. So I do that too. And fiction manuscripts, newsletters, nonfiction manuscripts, all kinds of stuff. I'm also a YouTuber, as you can see. I have a couple of videos that I have made and I haven't had time to edit. So I'll tell you about that as well. Nobody's perfect. Even if you're good at time management, there are going to be weaknesses that you have, and like that's totally normal. So that I also host the Writer's Edge podcast that is on YouTube as well. And that's where we have a group. I'm the host, and I choose a few participants, a few writers or publishers. It depends on what we're doing. And I come up with a bunch of questions. I come up with a topic, and etc. And we have a nice about hour-long live stream. So that's just a few of the things that I do. They all involve their own separate social media pretty much. So it is a lot of stuff. And even if you have a full-time job and you're an author, that's already like a ton. You know what I mean? So, I just wanted to share with you the kinds of things that Amie was asking about. So now let's get into time management. Okay, there are a number of tips that I have. Some of them will sound more obvious than others. Some of them I hope will be something a little bit different than you've heard. So one of the things that I have found out is when you are doing a task. This is actually something I learned from my boss. I was not good at this before he mentioned it. Evaluating quickly how much time and effort something that you're doing is worth. So if you're writing an email, sometimes we end up spending like forever on an email or something like little like that. And it seems kind of silly, and it can be a waste of time. So one thing that I have been doing a lot is saying, okay, I'm struggling with this. How much time is it actually worth? It's an email, and it's not a super important one. It's just, a general one, whatever. This is worth like 5 minutes of my time. And so I watch the time and I make sure that I do like 5 to 7 minutes, no more. And by trying to keep myself within that time, by evaluating it myself, I've sort of put its own value on it. And so I'm more likely to stick with it. It's different than when somebody says to you, like, don't spend more than 5 minutes on this. And then you're like, how do I do that? Because you've evaluated it yourself, this email isn't worth that much time. And then when you look at your writing and you say, well, you know what, I'm going into a difficult scene or something like that, let's just say, I think this is going to take like an hour at least. Then you can say, if you only have 15 minutes to get something done, don't do that. You know what I mean? You're just going to frustrate yourself. And that's not a good use of your time. So that's one of the things that I've been doing a lot. I do it at work. I do it for my business. I do it as an author. I do it for pretty much everything. And definitely if you do emails a lot and you do a lot of similar emails, if you are a business or anything like that, do templates. Come up with templates. If there's anything you can make into a template, even if there are things you change, do it. It helps majorly. That changed how much time I spend in both work and in my editing business, especially. Also for the Writer's Edge, there are certain things I have to tell anybody who's going to be on the podcast every single time. So why should I rewrite that over and over? I have a template, I just go into a folder and I pick it out. It's much easier. And yeah, like I said, if you evaluate that time and you know how much you want to spend on it, it's much, much faster. It has helped me a lot. So another thing is along the same lines, thinking about what is the most efficient way to accomplish something. And what I mean by that is, for example, I'm going to give you examples that I actually do. If I need to put up, schedule a Facebook post for my author page, what I tend to do is I notice that since I'm posting about Victorian stuff, historical, even if it's just a picture, it can take me time to find something authentic and something interesting. So those are two things that I need to find. It's not always easy, even though it might seem like it's easy. So what I tend to do is once I get some of that research done, I'm sitting there with research that maybe I have more stuff there that is useful. Well, it's kind of silly for me to just X out the page at that point since I've done one I got my one Facebook post done, that's it. What I tend to do instead is say, okay, I'm going to do a week's worth of Facebook posts right now. And that way I don't waste that time. Because to me, to spend, let's say 10 minutes researching something, maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but let's just say 10 minutes researching something, I find what I want, I've come across a number of things that might work. And then to just be like, oh, well, that's not good. So I'll set aside a certain amount of time. I'll say, okay, I'm going to do them all at one time. Maybe even for the holiday season for Christmas, I said, okay, I'm just going to take an hour and I'm going to find all these great Victorian postcards and pictures and things to do with Christmas and the holidays. And I'm going to just schedule them all for the entire month of December. Do you know how much time that saved me? Because I did it all at one time. I didn't spend 15 minutes or 10 minutes every single time I wanted to put up a post, or even 7 minutes. I just took the hour and finished off the entire month. And I didn't have to think about it at all. So I spent no more time on that. It was done. And for me, that is totally worth it. For somebody else, they might be like, Facebook posts are easy. I can bang them out like that. So things like that I think are really useful when you start to notice that about yourself and pay attention to it. Another thing is notice if any particular time works best for you for something and go with that. There's nothing wrong with saying okay, Sundays, I am just better at writing blog posts. I don't know why, it just works. We'll use that. Why shouldn't you? I have found, for example, that for me, if I'm going to write a blog post, especially when I was doing every Monday, I would have a blog post. I would write it I would find the picture in advance sometimes, but I would write it every Sunday at a particular time. It was around 9 at night. And I found that when I did it at 9 at night on a Sunday, I could really write it well and I could write it fast and I was happy with it. And when I did it on a Wednesday, for some reason, I would just take forever to do it. And I would just be obsessing over it and being I don't like what I wrote. It's not coming out good. But when I did it on a Sunday at 9, it came out great the first time. And I didn't spend tons of time trying to edit it, trying to find the right picture, not getting my point across, blah, blah, blah. So using those kinds of things to your advantage. Some people would say oh, well, if you can't just write or do things anytime, that's kind of a weakness. Not necessarily. I mean, really, if you know that you do better at a certain time, that's like saying, oh, if you can't write at night or in the morning, then, if you have to pick a specific time, then, you're not a writer. That's not how it works at all. If you're a morning writer, so what? What is the problem? You're more efficient then and you write really well. That's a good thing. Use it to your advantage. Just pay attention and notice that that's how you work. And you're going to really improve your efficiency on what you're doing. It works so well for me. It has made a big difference for me. So one more thing on the efficiency is that for me at least, what I need to do sometimes is start with something that's going to take the shortest amount of time to get myself into it. Like, so if I'm answering like a ton of emails, I'll start with the shortest one. If I have emails and editing and something else to do, I'll start with whatever is the shortest. And then it feels like I've really got stuff done. It feels good. It feels efficient. And I start off on the right foot, So like knowing your mentality helps a lot. And if you know that something is going to make you feel good to do initially, like even if that means that starting your day with something in particular is going to make the rest of the day more efficient. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to do with writing and editing. It can just be setting yourself up really well for the entire day. So that's something that I do, again, all the time. If I evaluate what I need to do, like at my full-time job, I evaluate what I need to do, what will make me feel good to get it out of the way, even if it's like really hard. Maybe it'll feel good to just get that done. Then the rest of the day is easier. Maybe I see a couple of emails that I can just, bam, get done, and that'll make me feel good. Just do that, it helps you like sort of psychologically. It just helps you feel like you're getting somewhere. Another thing that I wanted to talk about, this is off of efficiency. Well, I guess everything is pretty much about efficiency. But one thing JD is saying, I've learned I have to vary my to-do list, sometimes daily, sometimes weekly. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. For some people, routine is really, really good. For some people, routine is bad. Go with whatever is best for you. It's fine to look at advice that people give. It's fine to look up advice. But if you find that advice doesn't work for you, don't feel bad about that. Don't ever say like, oh, but this was supposed to work. Like, let that go. Absolutely let that go. And just like JD is saying, vary your to-do list if you need to. I definitely do that too. So I totally agree with you, JD. It helps a lot. Sometimes you get set into a routine and like you start doing things like taking longer on them. Like if I do the same routine in the morning for too long, sometimes I start to take longer on whatever I'm doing just because I'm too used to it and I get bored. I need to switch it up and do something different so I move faster, So I'm glad he brought up that point. One thing about focus. One thing, of course, a great way to use your time efficiently is to be able to focus on what you're doing really, really well. So one thing I was finding for a while is that when I would have the time to write at night, I would sit down to write and sort of still feel like taken up with the day, like not really being able to, as much as I wanted to write and as much as I was excited about it, I would be sort of like, okay, well, but there's all this stuff going on at work and I'm trying to clear my mind, but it's not working out too well. And sort of relaxing or lying down or reading or something was not working for me. That might work for some people. Whatever will clear your mind and make you be able to focus on writing or editing or whatever you're doing is what you should do, of course. For me, what I found was at first it seemed really complex, but for me, when I would sit down to write at night, I was like, okay, I need for my screen to look totally different. I need for it to look completely different than what I look at all day, because we all look at computer screens all day, and then we're back to it at night. Of course, if you write in like a journal or a notebook, that's better. It's a change, but not everybody does, and a lot of people write on the computer. So I look at it and I see it as the same thing I've been doing all day, and that distracts me, and it keeps me from focusing. So what I started doing with a particular work, Greed, that I had to pause so that I can get, focus on Lock and Key. But Greed is something that I'm really excited to publish. Hopefully this year, we'll see. Anyway, no promises. I would have a hard time focusing, and I would be so excited to write it, and I wouldn't know how am I going to get this done if I can't even focus on the story or the characters, like anything. And so what I started doing was changing the way the screen looked, actually. That's one thing I did. I use Scrivener, but you can use anything for this. So I would put Scrivener into full screen mode. Then I would change the background of the document, or it's the whole screen at that point, to black, because the piece was dark. And I just felt like the piece needed to have a black background. So that's what I did. And then I switched the font to white or green or something like that, that I felt really set the ambiance. Then I discovered that having some kind of ambiance noise in the background helped, like a fireplace or like weather. A certain type of weather started really helping me with Greed. And it was like a sort of windy, not thunderstormy necessarily, but that's online too. That kind of thing was really helping me, maybe a little bit of rain. And then I found that I was also like trying to hear this sort of, it's a particular type of music that's it's both relaxing and it has some real like emotional chords to it, sort of. And I started putting that on, and I mixed the sounds so that they kind of, even though they weren't on the same soundtrack, they sounded like they were together, like they were the same song. And when I put all of that together, I know it sounds like a lot, but I started banging out the manuscript. Like it was much easier, much easier. It was just that I couldn't focus. And once I got into this completely different, I mean, think about what I changed. I changed sight and sound. And that's pretty much what you can change, except for like if you want to bake cookies and smell that or something. But you know, I changed what my computer looked like. I no longer saw what I saw all day. I changed what I was hearing so that I could feel like I was actually in the situation of the manuscript. I was in the mood and the ambience of the manuscript. And I started really banging out words, and words that I was really happy with, words that I was proud of, that I could work with later. So that's one thing to continue. Again, I know it sounds like it's kind of complicated, but it's actually, once you figure that out, wow, does it make a difference? I don't think I've ever written so much day after day after day. So that really helped me. That's focus. Another thing that you can do is, now I personally don't do this, but I saw this advice somewhere, so I wanted to share it with you. I saw somebody recommend, and I'm sure more than one person has recommended this, of course, but separating tasks and assigning them to different days. So what they would do is, for example, they would do like Monday is your marketing day, and you focus, you know, even if you have a full-time job after your full-time job, then like maybe Monday is your marketing day and you focus solely on marketing, and maybe you even make a list of the things you want to do during the rest of the week so that you've got it set and you don't waste any time. But anyway, Monday is your marketing day, Tuesday is your social media day, Wednesday is like research or something, Thursday could be brainstorming, you know, Friday could be your editing day, and then you head into maybe a weekend of writing or something. And for some people, splitting that up makes a big difference because they're no longer torn between tasks. They can fully focus their attention on one thing per day. And so I think that in some cases that really can help. I think for some people, they might need to do that all the time. For me, that's something that sometimes I need to do, and I need to just be like, okay, this day is dedicated to writing. This day is dedicated to editing. And, you know, like I said, you're not torn. Your focus is not torn. Of course, it's good to be able to multitask, but when you're being creative, and sometimes when you have a hard time getting something done, especially if it's something you don't like, you need to be able to just laser focus and just get that thing done. So especially if you've got like to-do lists and you know exactly what you're headed into. So that's another thing that I would recommend if you have trouble focusing, or you find that, you know, this amount of time is not enough, or your multitasking is just not working. Let's see. JD has a question, two questions. Have you noticed that moods impact time management? Yeah. If I'm really like, if I'm not in a good mood, if I'm not in a good place, if I'm feeling kind of like low, or I don't know, for some reason, like maybe the day has gone really badly and I'm extremely stressed, then that can definitely impact what I'm doing after work. And so that's where the focus stuff can come in. That's also where evaluating at that moment, like, okay, look, if I sit down to write, am I really going to write anything good right now? Maybe because I'm feeling critical, editing would be better. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can actually use that to your benefit for sure. So if you could figure out like, what does that mood mean for what you do, that could be useful. Then there are times when you just need to relax and you're like, wow, I'm so upset about everything, and I need to just like, you know, have some chocolate and watch a movie and refresh. You know what I mean? Like, that can happen too. And again, like, don't feel bad about that. Don't feel like, we all, writers especially, tend to feel like, oh, I'm wasting time. Oh no. But we all need to recharge, and you can actually do more damage to yourself by burning out. That's another thing I should mention. There was a time when I was going so hard at work. This is a few years ago. So hard at work, so hard at writing, so hard at editing, that I really burned out. And it actually did have an impact on me emotionally, to the degree that I was sort of like paralyzed. And I, not like physically, obviously, but like paralyzed, like I couldn't do anything. And I had to just like pretty much sit around for the whole weekend and do nothing because I lost my focus completely. My drive was gone, my motivation was shot, and my brain was just fried. So like that ended up wasting more time than just watching a movie. You know what I mean? So that's a really good question. And I just want to make sure that you guys, yeah, JD is saying just getting back from a semi-burnout. And, you know, Amber's saying, I love the whole community feel, but I know I can't decide the time can't dedicate the time to it. That happens too. Mike Pilgrim, he's a horror author. He dedicates certain times to going on social media. So like you'll post something for him or you'll ask him a question and you know that you need to wait like a week because he's going to get back to you in probably a week. You know, that's just how he works. And since you know that, like it's not a big deal. And it can really help sometimes. If that's the way you work, people will get used to it. You know, they'll understand. And sometimes he posts and says, oh, I'm taking a break. I'll be back in a week. And that's totally fine too. I see plenty of writers do that. It's a pretty good thing to do. JD Estrada is also asking, will you camp Nano again? He's asking all of us that are here. And for me, so if you're going to camp Nano, definitely leave a comment down below if you're watching this after the live stream so that he'll see it, or, you know, leave it in the chat. JD, I'm not going to be able to nano this July. I will be doing the nano in November, but in July, I'm not going to be able to do it because I already have a couple of editing jobs and those are going to take up a lot of my time. So that's another thing with time management. I can see coming down the pike that I'm not going to be able to do Camp NaNoWriMo. So I'm not going to sign up for it because I know that it's going to make me feel low, that I'm not doing well enough or I'm not reaching my goals. So for me, it's going to impact me badly if I was to sign up for it and like not be able to achieve anything. So that's another thing I guess you could keep in mind. Hi, Joe. Going D Now is here. Yes. Definitely check out Going D Now. Go to his YouTube channel. He puts up videos all the time and he's got plenty there for you. You can meet a lot more authors and you can see some awesome tags. So definitely check him out. JD is also saying that, you know, I really need to schedule better. I bounce around a lot and would like to take a break soon. Yeah, for sure. I understand that 100%. JD, I used to struggle a lot more with that until I started doing these kinds of things. And believe me, like the struggle is just like when you're done with one struggle, the next one starts. So, I mean, it's always a matter of evaluating yourself and your time, how you're spending it, and what is working for you at that moment. So, let me bring up another point about, what was I going to say? Recognizing, I think I wanted to say recognizing what's worth, like not what's worth your time, but how you can manage it psychologically. So I already mentioned you know, how it impacts you psychologically to do different things and how it's okay that if psychologically to you, you know, Sunday at 9 o'clock doing a blog post works best. I'm just going to take a quick drink of water. Okay. Another example of that I think is really important and has made a difference for me is I'm going to give you the example of YouTube. YouTube, I used to, I really enjoy it. I used to struggle to some degree with the idea of like between recording and trying to edit the video. I would do it all at one time because that's what I was doing at the time. Sometimes I'd do it all on Saturday morning. It would waste half the day. Well, waste, I put that in quotes. I was saying waste because it was so much time at one time, all bunched together, and that didn't work for me. For me, I was starting to feel like I'm losing half a Saturday. If you find yourself thinking that, try to think how you could reorganize that. And I did that with YouTube and it has helped enormously. So what I ended up doing was finding that if I record on one day and then edit on another, yeah, probably ultimately it takes the same amount of time. Maybe it takes the same amount of hours. But psychologically, I felt motivated. Whereas before, I was not feeling motivated at all. I was sort of like, this is taking up half my Saturday. Is it worth it? It was worth it because YouTube for me is both a creative outlet and it's a way to talk to new people, new writers. Some people have discovered my book through YouTube. So it's definitely worth it for me. I really enjoy it so much. So I didn't want to give it up. And so I came up with this thing where I was like, well, maybe if I record a different day, let's see how that works. And it made all the difference to me. If you're really lucky and you're like JD, you can record and just post it. You know, you don't need to edit it. But for me, my videos do need editing. So that made a big difference for me. I have a video that's recorded right now that needs editing and I just haven't had the time to do it. but it's there and I don't feel, down about it because I haven't spent time that I didn't feel I had editing something, So I will get to it and I will set that time aside, but I don't feel like I'm wasting time, even though it's not an actual waste of time. You get what I'm saying though. So if you find that psychologically breaking something down works for you, then just do it. Like, man, that can make a huge difference. It made a big difference to me. And so another thing that I wanted to mention was figuring out if something is no longer worth your time. And that can be really, really painful. I know it can be painful. One of the things that I have not done, I have not been updating my blog as often. I have found that the blog is okay, but I can enjoy writing it, and I enjoy when I can do something more creative with it, something more interesting. Again, it's going to come down to like writing advice, the same kind of stuff that I do on my YouTube channel. But you know what? Even though it takes a lot more time to do a video, I enjoy the video a lot more. That's just me. It may take a lot more time, a lot more effort, a lot more thought and everything. But the videos for me, I enjoy so much more. For a while, I tried to balance it between the blog and videos, and I ended up falling behind on both, So what I had to do was take a step back and realize that that was happening. And I said, all right, well, I enjoy the videos a lot more. But every site tells you you're supposed to blog because it keeps up your website. I was finding that blogging was not doing that much for my website anyway. Again, just me. Maybe for you, your website is a big deal. And or rather, when you blog, it brings in a lot of people and then they might discover your book. Well, then maybe that's worth your time. But for me, like I said, the videos I enjoy creatively. I would prefer to put my time into that. I have actually found that more people have discovered my books that way, and more writers have discovered advice that helps them when they watch my videos versus reading my blog. So for me, all the way around, I decided that the blog was going to be something that I do when I have time. And that's something that people have been deciding between blog and newsletter as well. What's more worth the time? What should I sort of bother with, not to put it in any way that's going to be rude to anybody, but, it does come down to that sometimes, and that's okay. And another thing I want to mention is with social media, there's so much to do. We have Facebooks. I have Facebook, Instagram. I have Twitter, YouTube. I'm on Litsy, Goodreads. I'm on Shorty. There's a ton of stuff I'm on. And you know what? I'm not able to keep all of it up every 2 seconds. It's kind of difficult. And so sometimes I go through phases, and I recognize that about myself. Do I wish I could update everything consistently all the time? Sure, I do. That would be fantastic. But I do also recognize that the Facebook page is something that for me is worth keeping up because people tend to see my announcements about books more. For YouTube, I've already told you why that's worth keeping up and why that's really important. Twitter is sort of on and off. It's fun, and it can be valuable. But again, don't feel bad if you have a tough time keeping those up because everyone struggles with that. And when you don't struggle with it, sometimes you end up putting up the same thing everywhere. That can benefit you. It cannot. Again, look at what works for you, We have a question from Joe. He says, how do you feel about being absent online? Do you feel like out of sight, out of mind is a hurtful prospect? Or do you think your audience will be understanding and when you post and how? How often doesn't matter. Oh, right. It doesn't let you post all in one line. Sorry. Have you read your analytics in this aspect and examined it? It's my constant struggle. Yeah, that is definitely a struggle. I do work really hard to keep up my online stuff. I try really hard to keep up Facebook. Some of my Facebook goes straight to Twitter because of that, because, keeping up with each thing with something completely different can be tough. Sometimes you just need to keep it active so that people don't think that you're just gone. So for me, definitely, I don't ever want people to think that, I'm just missing or I'm not writing anymore. That's my fear. That's probably my number one fear, that if I didn't post in a week or more than a week, people would start to think oh, maybe she's not writing anymore. It's surprising. I will tell you one thing. One of the things that people complain most about YouTube / BookTube, whichever, both rather, is that if they really like your channel, they get upset if you don't post enough. that's something that I can't post every day. On YouTube, I don't have the time to post a video every day because like I said, I have to edit all of them. So for me, I can't do that. But on certain platforms, people want that and they expect it and they can even get annoyed with you about it. So listening to your audience is an important thing. Setting the right expectation is the biggest thing, I would say, Joe, because that's why in our banners, like so many of us tend to put I post on these days. Even with like big, major, huge YouTubers that have 1 million or more subscribers, they'll put post Sunday and Wednesdays or something like that. And that's the reason that they do it, so that when to watch, they're not inactive. And I've even seen a lot of YouTubers make sure to always say like, I'm not posting today, guys, but I'm still here. Don't worry about it. So to me, I think it is important. Out of sight can be out of mind. Out of sight can mean that people, like you said, forget about you, or maybe think that you've stopped writing. I mean, I had somebody say something about what was it? Something about Candy Crush and does whatever you're doing grab the attention of somebody who loves Candy Crush, something along those lines. And it is sort of like that, if Candy Crush is an example, that's something where it's constantly moving, constantly. We're expected to multitask. And so, if I'm not doing everything, I definitely fear, that I'm going to lose some people there. It has happened on Facebook. If I don't post for like 2 or 3 days, wow, does my Facebook page suffer? Talk about my author page, so I definitely, analytics, I will say I don't watch so much, Joe, because like, I've found that a lot of analytics don't actually help me, which is very strange. I don't understand it, but if I look at my website analytics, if I post at the time when it says most people are looking or an hour before, it makes no difference. Sometimes it goes the opposite way. So it's a little bit strange, and some people will tell you, oh, you need to publish your book, for example, on a Thursday or a Tuesday because that's best. Other people will say Wednesday. So like, it is, I think, a matter of paying close attention to what your audience wants. I have found that on Facebook, for example, it's not worth my time to research things and put lots of facts, like written facts on there, because most people are not interested in reading them. So what I've found is that people are interested in historically accurate and attractive pictures with like 1 or 2 sentences. And so that's what I do. If that's what they're interested in, that's fun. I like that. Why wouldn't I do it? So I do pay close attention to that. I make sure to check in with my audience on YouTube and say like, what do you guys want to see? And I try to do those videos. So, JD is saying, I worry about overposting because YouTube has a glitch that unsubscribes people and don't want to oversaturate. Oh my God, I know that. YouTube is so confusing. YouTube doesn't really completely know what it's doing with that kind of stuff. And, like I just said, some people are expecting you to post a video every day. And if you don't, they're like, ugh, I'm so frustrated and annoyed, but at the same time, you can't oversaturate. I saw advice once on Facebook that was like from some social media like expert that was saying on Facebook, you have to post no more than once a day. For some people, they post 3 times a day and have excellent results. And if they went down to 1 time a day, they wouldn't do so well. So, yeah, Joe says he's nodding his head in agreement. Yeah, it's so tough, but just feel it out for yourself. Feel out what your crowd likes. What are your readers into? What are they waiting for? What are they looking for? What do they respond best to? And like, if you're really into it, then you're probably going to do some of what you want and a lot of what they want. And I think that works out very well in the end, because the stuff, you're going to still be passionate. If you're only doing what other people want and it's not something you like at all, like you hate it or something, you're not going to have the passion. But then just balance it. You know what I mean? So those are my advice points about time management. And Amber is saying, too bad they keep that fine line a secret, the fine line on YouTube between overposting and underposting. It would be nice if we knew what were the overposting, guidelines. I totally agree with that, 100%. It's frustrating because these social media outlets don't really help you. And a lot of times they're generic tips. I guess they work for some people, but they're not going to work for everyone. I'm just looking at I'm looking at the chat. Yeah, JD actually has a really good schedule. He has like On Fridays, he does Double O Bananas, and like I look forward to that. On Thursdays, he does Sock It To Me on Twitter and Insta. Actually, I think he does it on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook now. And you can just like share your fun socks. You can share something writerly, anything. And like JD has gathered like a big group of people who are interested, and more people are coming to do that. So like something he could notice is that it's definitely worth doing something on the same day every week. It's definitely worth doing something entertaining and fun, because people love fun stuff. They want to just like get out of the whole work mentality and stress and all that. Like, and so he's a great example of figuring out like what people like. And like JD, you may not have meant to do that at all. You may have just been doing it because you like it, but it worked out so well. So, that's just another good way to manage your time. You notice people like things on a Wednesday. Well, that solves your problem, doesn't it? Yeah, exactly. The fun stuff cuts through the bad news, he's saying, and any stress and stuff. So definitely really good stuff. So that's about it, I think, for my time management advice. A lot of times, like, I'll just give you one more example. I find that like if I'm going to edit, I need a solid block of time. If I'm editing my own book, it's one thing. I can do like 15-minute increments because I know my book and stuff like that. But if I'm working on someone else's book, I know that I would prefer to read it in big chunks. I'd like to spend like the weekend reading it. And in that case, if I have an editing job, I'm probably going to switch other stuff to during the week and editing to heavily during the weekend and a little bit during the week. So like if I know that's how I work efficiently, that's how I'm going to do it. It's just the best way to manage it. And slipping in anything you can in between, like tweets and like Twitter and stuff, Instagram posts, things that make you feel good, things that are easy to do, slipping those in between, that can feel really good as well. So, pay attention to your feelings too. Oh, yes, Joe. He says he's going to have something in the fall for me to edit. I'm really excited about that. I know what you're talking about, and I'm pumped. He does have another book coming out. This is Joe Compton. Look him up. He wrote Amongst the Killing, and he's going to be coming out with another book too. I believe it's We the Moral Majority. So definitely look for that when he comes out with it. He has spent considerable time on it, so I'm excited to see it. So if you guys are watching this afterwards and you have any questions or you have any of your own tips that you'd like to share, definitely leave them in the comments. I love seeing new tips. You never know when something is going to help you. I see different things all the time. I try them out. I see what works for me, and then I try to spread the word. This is a good idea. This works for me. Try it. So thank you so much for joining me. As always, I really appreciate when you spend your time with me, and I will see you soon.